Hello everybody and welcome. I recently was able to travel to the United States and spend the holidays with my family and friends, and I spent 3 weeks in Southern California with my family, and then I went to the East Coast to spend a week with my childhood friends because I am originally from Connecticut. And while I was there, I did get to some fabric shopping. Originally, I wasn't going to film or share this trip or make a video of it, but one of you asked in the comments recently for me to share what I had purchased on my trip, and I did make purchases. I still wasn't going to share them because, you know, it's just stuff. But I thought it'd be interesting to show you the shops that I went to because they were all 4 of them very, very well put together shops, interesting to visit and very welcoming. And because there are fewer and fewer actual physical fabric and crafting shops in the US, especially with the closing of the big fabric chain Joann's Fabrics nationwide, I know that a lot of you ask in my videos in the comment sections, where do I buy fabric in the US? And I can't help you very much because I don't live in the US. And so I figured with this video, maybe we could start a conversation in the comments where you shop for fabric in person and sort of create a list of reference for the community. And so to start, here are 4 that I would like to tell you about between California, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. But before we get started, if you're new here, hello and welcome. My name is Sarah. I'm originally from Connecticut, but I moved to France in 2009 and I've been living and working here ever since. And on this channel, I mostly talk about my sewing projects, but a little bit of knitting and embroidery from time to time, and then a little bit of what it's like to live in France or how it affects my creativity, because it definitely influences what I make and what I wear, or the handmade garments that I wear on a daily basis. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy. So first I was in Southern California with my family for Christmas, and then my husband and I spent a few days visiting my aunt and uncle in San Diego, and my aunt had looked up all of the fabric shops that she could bring me to in San Diego, and unfortunately, because we were there between Christmas and the New Year, almost all of the shops were closed, but there was one that was open, and oh, I'm so happy that it was open. And it's called Material Happiness, and as soon as I stepped inside, I knew it was something very, very special. This shop specializes in secondhand fabrics that would otherwise be thrown away, also vintage patterns and other notions like embroidery kits, but they also sell new fabrics and all kinds of embroidery tools, especially Japanese tools for sashiko and Japanese crafting tools in general. There were so many interesting things to look at in this shop, and it was really hard to figure out what exactly I wanted to bring home with me. First, I decided on bringing home this really gorgeous deep teal linen-like cotton. So it's 100% cotton, but it looks like a linen slub, and it's got all kinds of different lovely colors mixed in there. And oh, I bought 2 yards of this. It's a very narrow fabric, which is interesting. And it's kind of stiff, but I think that it will relax over time. And I thought it would be an excellent fabric for a pair of pants. I was thinking, so if you've been watching recently, you might know that I fell in love with the Seymour Joss pants. And I was thinking, maybe another pair of Seymour Joss pants when I purchase this, so that's a possibility. But then I was also thinking, I'd probably prefer to make pants out of this rather than a skirt because it is kind of stiff, and I think a skirt would be either super wrinkly or, yeah, it wouldn't be casual enough, and I'd want ease of movement in this fabric. Or I was thinking of making the Closet Crew pattern, the Josephine pants from the Josephine set that published last year, because it's a similar wide leg pant, but it's really interesting in that it doesn't have an elasticated waist. It has these little buttons in the front. It looks kind of like sailor pants in the front, but I like the pocket construction. I like the very deep hem, and that would be an option with this as well. This was the most expensive thing that I bought at this shop, and it was $16.99 per yard, and I bought 2 yards of this. So I'm excited to make this probably more this spring or summer. But yeah, I love this color. How beautiful. The next piece that I purchased is this 100%, I think it's a yarn dyed cotton, and it says that, or the label said that it was black and gray, but I think it looks a little bit more navy than black, or at least it's more of a softer dark gray. It doesn't seem like a very stark black, and I just love it. I love this sort of cross-hatched check that's on it, and how they're a little bit more like embroidery lines, like little broken lines or kind of faded or dotted lines rather than solid lines, and it just seems really lovely. I'm not sure what I'm going to make with this. Probably a top, because it is a very light, and I think it's opaque, but I'm not sure in the summer light because I don't have that available to me right now. But I think that it would be a really lovely, breathable top. This one was $7.50 a yard, and I purchased 2 yards, and so I have plenty to make something with sleeves or not. I will have to see. I really don't know. So let me know, what would you make with this? And give me ideas, because it's just so gorgeous, and I think that it'd be lovely to wear in the summertime when it's hot, because it's just light and airy cotton. The next fabric that I purchased, and the last one that I purchased at this shop, is this. And this is entirely an impulse buy, and I found it in, I think it was their secondhand dead stock fabrics that they had, and it smells like someone's attic. This is, I think, waxed cotton. I think it's 100% cotton, and you can kind of hear it's kind of crinkly, and it's just gorgeous colors. Look at these colors. I have no idea what I'm going to do with this. Something around the house. Because it's waxed, I suppose it could go outside. I could make cushions for my chairs outside. Do I want to? I don't know. Maybe a tote bag. Oh, so many possibilities. Let me know, what would you make out of this? Something for the house, something to wear? Probably not something to wear. It's pretty waxy and shiny. But yeah, I just love these colors. How gorgeous. Ooh, and this one, how much was this one? This one was $6 a yard, which is exactly why I impulsively bought it. That is not expensive, and I just love these colors. The next thing that I found at that shop is this marking tool, and it is by the Japanese brand Clover, and you use this little angled edge here to mark your fabric with a crease. So rather than using ink or chalk, you can make a little crease in your fabric. And I was thinking, I've seen this used for embroidery, for example, for marking fabric for sashiko embroidery, and I thought back to my seamwork hanzi top that I made with the Seigaiha sashiko pattern, and I remember it was very hard to mark the fabric. I was using a fabric pen, a friction pen, that has ink that comes off when you iron it. And I remember it was really hard to use the pen with that fabric because it was loosely woven, and therefore the pen would sort of get stuck on the different weft and weaves of that fabric and not glide. And so perhaps something like this would work better. I'm not sure. I'll have to see. I haven't used it yet. But a lot of the times getting an accurate and optimal result in sewing is about having the right tools, and so hopefully it will become a useful tool in my sewing room. The next thing that I picked up from that shop is this book. They had a bunch of books, really beautiful crafting books, and this one is The Handmade Home by Aruna Kunaraj. I hope I said that right, I'm not sure. And she is one of the creators behind Boku, the YouTube channel, and I think they have a shop where they sell little embroidered and fabric creations. And I love their YouTube channel. I found it recently, and it has me wanting to try incorporating more embroidery in my sewing projects and making more little accessories like pouches and things by hand, because she does most sewing by hand. And I've learned lots of new techniques through her channel, and so I'll link it below if you'd like to check it out. But this is her book, and I love the aesthetic of the channel, and so already I was interested in purchasing the book even before I went to this shop. But it's just so beautiful, the sort of colors. I love the natural colors and fibers that she uses all the time, and how different techniques are incorporated. For example, there's a lot of sashiko incorporated. There's a lot of quilting as well. Ooh, there was this as well, the drawn thread technique. That's something that has always interested me a lot. I find it really, really beautiful in vintage tablecloths and napkins that I see sometimes here in France. Or here, these handmade and quilted coasters. And I think this sort of exemplifies what I love so much about this book. It's that, well, maybe not that one, but there's another one. It's the hot water bottle cover. So this is sort of quilted, and I just love how it's both playing around with texture and hand stitching. Her color palette is especially just absolutely gorgeous, and I'm not sure what I would make. It would be as coherent, but it just looks cozy but not sloppy. And so I'm really inspired by her aesthetic and the aesthetic of this book. For example, that's quilted with just a running stitch. See, so nothing complicated, just something simple and beautiful. And so I've been thinking more. I think I mentioned this in my 2026 Creative Intentions video, if you'd like to check that out here in more detail, but I mentioned that I've been thinking about making for the home a little bit more, and so I will definitely be looking through this book for inspiration for projects around the home to make my home cozier and more personal. And I will link it below if you're interested in checking out this book as well. The last thing I purchased is this. This is a cross-stitching kit, and it is a little sewing room. And I think it's pretty vintage. It looks really old, at least the design of the kit, and it was sold for $6. And it looks like it's been aged a little bit, or at least it's been in someone's basement for a while or attic for a while. I think she gets things from vintage sales or garage sales, things like that. But I just love how cozy this little room is. I love how there are flowers everywhere, and a little kitty, and quilting and sewing. And it's just really cozy. And I thought, you know, I have nothing on the wall over here in my sewing corner, or it might be able to go in my bedroom. But I really love counted cross-stitching kits. I find that because a lot of my sewing projects take so much mental work, planning what I want to make, finding the fabric, figuring out fitting, everything, sometimes it's just like a mental vacation to work on a kit where all of the colors are figured out for me and I just have to follow a map and stitch. It's so relaxing. And so this is something I might want to get into this year. But yeah, I find it really cute, and this makes me happy. So then after 3 weeks with my family in Southern California, I headed to the East Coast to spend time with my friends. And my visit started with a girls' weekend in Great Barrington, Massachusetts, with 3 childhood friends who came from Connecticut, Boston, and Washington, D.C., and me from France, all to be together. And this is their 3rd time, my 2nd time, being able to meet up with them at what we call a book club live, because we have a book club together where we meet once a month on Zoom and talk about the pick of the month. So the book we were reading for this book club live was an Agatha Christie novel. For some of us, including me, it was the first time reading Agatha Christie, and it was a Hercule Poirot book, and so our weekend was Hercule Poirot themed. And it was so much fun. But as we were walking around the center of Great Barrington, going book shopping and stopping by the cheesemongers to put together a cheese plate, for example, we stopped by a place called Heart Fabrics, which is in the center of Great Barrington. And it is a really nice little shop, specialized mostly in knitting and weaving, which is really cool because I've never seen so many resources and tools for weaving. And they have classes about weaving, and oh, it was so interesting. I wanted to stay and take a class. But they did have a few accessories, for example, embroidery and sewing, but mostly knitting and weaving. And so I didn't purchase any big things, but I had a lot of fun looking around, and I did pick up one thing as a souvenir for this weekend, and it was these point protectors for my knitting needles in the shape of little cabled hats with pom-poms. And how cute is that? I paid way too much for them. I think it was $20 with taxes for point protectors, but I figured it was a great souvenir for this weekend and very appropriate for snowy Great Barrington because it did snow while I was there and it was magical. Just enough snow to be cute, not annoying. And how lucky for me, because I know that they've been hit with lots of snow since I left, and I hope everyone's okay. But yeah, that's what I got from Great Barrington, and that shop was really interesting, especially if you're interested in learning how to weave. So then I spent some time with my friend Natalie in Connecticut, and I got to spend time with her husband and her 2 little boys, and there was snow on the ground and it was lovely. And my friend Natalie also looked up all of the fabric shops she might be able to take me to in Connecticut, and unfortunately they were all pretty spaced apart. So we picked the one that was strategically located in the same area as an independent bookstore we wanted to check out, and other bookstores that we could go to as well, because we both love book shopping too. And it's Americana Fabrics in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, which is not far from the capital city of Hartford. And before walking in, I told my friend Natalie, okay, we're just gonna go look. I'm not gonna buy anything else because my suitcase is already pretty much full and I've spent enough money already. I'm just gonna look. And then I walked in and I realized that not only did they have fabrics that I don't often find in France, but the prices were really low and unbeatable, and it was great. So they had especially flannel fabrics. They had a small but beautiful selection of cotton flannels, so 100% cotton flannels. I find that you can find cotton flannel in France, and they're usually in sort of bright red colors or really warm colors like yellow, orange, and red. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not looking in the right place. If you know where to buy cotton flannels in Europe, let me know. But this was just too good to be true. It was $6.99 a yard, and so I bought 2 yards of this. It is more of a lighter to medium weight cotton flannel, and I was thinking of making another pair of these silver Luna pajama pants. And I already have two, so one is more of a burgundy and green and sort of yellowy version, and then the other one is a dark blue and white check, and the blue and white checks are much bigger than these and a little bit less nuanced, so this has a lot of different colors in it. And even though I already have two, I think that a third pair would be really useful because often both are in the wash and then I don't have flannel pajama pants in the wintertime, and that's just a tragedy. And so I think that this also will be more like the weight of my burgundy version or red greenish version rather than the dark blue and white, and so easy to wear around the house when I want to wear my pajamas all day because the bulkier one is a little bit too warm. But yeah, I was thinking, should I make a flannel shirt out of this? Because this would be perfect for a flannel shirt. And then I thought, well, am I a flannel shirt person? I don't think I would wear it, or if I would, I could see myself wearing it maybe. But not in this color. I think that this blue is a little bit too warm, if you know what I mean. I think there's a little bit too much yellow in it to work with my face. To work with to be close to my face. So I think I want to keep it away from my face and on my bottom half, and I think it will be a super cozy pair of pajama pants. Also, I forgot to mention the price. This one was $6.99 a yard, which is just so great. So I bought two. That shop also had a great selection of wool coating, and oh my goodness, if I had room in my bag for wool coating, I would have bought some because they had a beautiful selection of Melton wools, especially with checks on them. And I am a sucker for checks on wool, especially large and subtle and beautiful colors. Oh, they had such a variety. So if you're looking for coating fabric and good quality Melton wool, try out Americana Fabrics. I think they have multiple locations throughout Connecticut, but they also had wool jersey. And they had it in all kinds of colors. So I picked this color. It was a bit more expensive. It was $19.99 a meter, or a yard. So I got 1 yard. But I have never found wool jersey. So this is more of a medium weight. Like, it's got a great drape, it's pretty opaque, it's not too thin and slinky. It is still kind of slinky, but not too much. Like, I could definitely make a cardigan out of this if I had enough. I don't think I have enough. But I have never found 100% wool jersey for less than 30 euros, and usually it's more. Usually it's more around 40 euros. To find it at $20 a yard is a steal, and so I purchased it. And I showed this to you recently in my winter plans video and the flannel as well, so sorry for the repeat, but I am planning on making a silver Edie top out of this because I don't have enough to make a cardigan, and I know that I make Edie tops all the time, but I make them mostly in very slinky viscose or bamboo jerseys, and I sleep in them. But even with flannel sheets and duvet covers and blankets, I'm still pretty cold at night. And I would like something in a wool jersey. I think that would be luxurious and lovely and still not too thick. Wool is a really great thermal regulator, and so it doesn't stink if you sweat a little bit in it, or it breathes really well, and it warms up with your body, it cools down with your body. It's just, it's lovely. So I am excited to work with this and make a top that I know that I will wear all the time. And then lastly, I spent a few days with my friend Laura in Boston, where she lives, before flying back from Boston to Paris. And there was absolutely a little knitting shop that she wanted to show me in Roslindale. And so we went one day on a very, very cold day, on the coldest day when I was there, and I got to test out this sweater, for example. And this Cornwall cable knit sweater definitely belongs in cold Massachusetts. It was perfect. And we went to Tight Knit in Roslindale, in the southern suburbs of Boston, and it was just the most beautiful little yarn, knitting, and crochet shop. I think they have also embroidery threads and some embroidery kits and books and little things, and so it was just so lovely. They had so many different kinds of yarn, and what struck me especially is not just that it was a shop and there were lots of yarns to buy, but it was the ambiance. We felt really welcome. We got to meet the owner who was there, and I think it's a small independent shop, and so I think she's there most days. And I quickly understood that it was more of the concentration is very much towards the community. So they have not only classes, but also community events pretty often. They have, what's really cool, it's a free library inside the shop where there's donated yarns from yarn stashes, like extra yarns that people don't need anymore, so you can take and give whatever you want, and patterns and knitting books, which is just really great. And there was a big table in the center of the shop, and she invited us to come back with our crafts. So if whenever we wanted, she keeps the shop nice and warm in the wintertime and nice and cool in the summertime, and she encourages her customers to come back with their project and just sit and hang out and knit or sew or whatever, just to hang out and enjoy the textile community around them. And I think that's so cool. It almost made me want to live in Roslindale just so I could, you know, go and hang out and knit with some people sometimes, because I find that textile crafts are very solitary at times. And oh, how cool. What a cool community space, and it's so welcoming around such a great craft like knitting. And so yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about it here, even though I didn't purchase anything. It was a really lovely welcoming space, and if you were in the Boston area, I highly recommend checking it out. So that is everything that I purchased in all the shops that I visited during my trip to the United States. Some of you asked me in a previous video if I got to the crafty projects that I brought with me that I mentioned in my handmade Christmas holiday video. I brought, I think, 5 projects, 2 knitting projects, an embroidery project, a gnome project, and no. I only really worked on my Berliga sweater, Berliga, I'll put the name below. But yeah, I worked on it the entire time because, as I planned, the stockinette stitches were much easier to do when spending time with friends and family than learning a pattern or working on a cross-stitching pattern or anything else. And I ended up stitching all the way down to the bottom of the body, right before the rib knitting at the hem, and came home, discovered that it was way too big on me. There was way too much ease in the body. It was just a weird cylinder around my body. And so I had to frog it all back to just below the arm side, and I'm knitting it again and adding waist shaping. So can we say that I did anything while I was there? Ooh, I did make the gnomes, the skiing gnomes that I showed you. My husband helped me put them together before Christmas, but we didn't finish them before he left to go back to France, because I stayed 2 weeks after he left. He could only take 2 weeks off of work. I ended up finishing them on my last night in California with my brother, who's very, very good at crafting. And so I gifted one to my brother and one to my sister. That was really fun to do with my brother, and a fun activity, and so I'm glad I brought that with me. So in fact, I worked on 2 of those projects, and I'm happy about that, but I need to be less ambitious next time, because I ended up carrying around the other projects with me the entire time, and that was not a good idea. Don't hesitate to check out the description below. I will link the 4 shops and anything else that I can below. And let me know in the comments, where do you go fabric shopping in the US, if you're from the US or you live there? I would love to know and be able to pass that information on to everybody else who's looking at the comments, because I know that since Joann's is closed, lots of people are looking and they don't know where to go. So if you have an idea, please do share, and hopefully together we can generate a great list of resources for everyone here. If you enjoyed this video, don't hesitate to like and subscribe. And if you would like to leave a tip, you can leave it via the Super Thanks option, the YouTube Super Thanks option in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, or I have linked in the description below my Ko-fi account if you'd like to leave a tip there as well. And any contributions are really helpful for this channel. I'm trying to make it what I do for a living, and any contributions are a big help. So thank you very much. I hope you are all doing well and your winters are going well, even if some of you are experiencing some really intense winter storms and snowstorms at the moment. I hope you are staying safe and warm, and that it will pass without any serious consequences for you. I'm thinking of you. Thank you for watching. Take care, and bye-bye.